Have you lost the connection with your higher self? Are you noticing the dis-ease of the outside world? It's time to reconnect with nature and each other and raise our consciousness, vibration, and frequency. Together we can create a world of peace and abundance. It's Spiritual Revolution Radio with your host, Dr. Will Miller.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Spiritual Revolution Radio. I'm Dr. Will Miller with the Life by Design Institute. And today I have Kristina Mand-Lakhiani as my guest on the show. And Kristina is a serial entrepreneur, an international speaker, an artist, and the co-founder of Mindvalley. She brings her female perspective to the company in leadership. She's a happiness advocate. She takes her kids on trips to the Amazon, and she recharges with groups of entrepreneurs such as the Maverick 1000, which I know that group, and she spends time with them on Richard Branson's Necker Island. Kristina, welcome to the show today.
Hello, and thank you so much for having me.
I'm excited to have you. I actually have met your husband a couple of times. I attended A-Fest, I think, for my first time back in 2010. It was in Maui, Hawaii. I might be off a year or something there. But so I know Mindvalley very well. So some of our listeners may not know what Mindvalley is. So maybe first, that's a good place to start. Tell us what Mindvalley is and how you guys started it and what it is.
So how we started it is probably a different thing now because it's been a while ago, and we started it pretty much as a publisher. So we were looking for great authors in personal growth and transformation and helping them to reach their audiences. But eventually we started understanding that there is a bigger and deeper problem with education in general. So right now we are actually an education institution. We like to compare ourselves to university, but of course we have to understand that university is an academic and scientific institution. We are an educational institution which is trying to fill in the gaps of traditional education. And what I'm talking about is, we go through education a little bit old-fashioned way, going for a diploma probably, or a great name for a university or some kind of popular course. But then when we go into real life, we discover that nobody has taught us the basics, how to be healthy, how to create loving relationships, how to raise children, how to find connection with yourself, how to be happy. So we started realizing that this niche is, while there are a lot of people who teach very important skills for life, right, for fulfilled, happy, extraordinary life, we decided to create actually an educational institution, an educational platform, so that people don't go into personal growth and transformation just to solve their problems. Like, I have a problem, I'll go and I'll try to find a solution, but actually come and get a holistic education in how to live a happy life. It's a very simple explanation. That's,
and so people understand, back in 2010 when I attended A-Fest, it was, I don't know, you hadn't been around for a long time at that point, but what you've built now is something quite amazing. You have some amazing teachers that are part of Mindvalley, and things that people can learn that they just will take them to higher levels. So Mindvalley is really cool, everyone. Letting you know.
Thank you.
You have a fan here, just so you know.
Thank you.
But I also want to, while we're kind of on the subject of you and how you got there, I know, like, you held a high position in the Estonian government for a while, and you've had quite a path. So tell us how that path led to where you're at now.
Oh God, that's a long story. Because,
it's a short version.
The short version. I was born a perfectionist. I guess everybody's born to some degree. And I did my career super early. I was born in Soviet Union, and everything was prescribed. So by the age of early 20s, I had become an advisor in the government here in Estonia. So I had made my career. But I was also full of interesting ideas about life and relationships. And I got married to Vision and moved to US, actually to New York, and discovered that world is so different from where I come from. And that's where my journey of self-discovery started. But I was perfectionist still for a really long time. So I built a perfect life by the book. I had a very Instagrammable kind of life. And at the age of 40, well, I did help Vision start Mind Valley from the very start, just because I was, for Vision, it was a passion project. For me, I was unemployed in New York. So that's how I ended up in Mind Valley. But now, of course, it's a different story. At some point of building Mind Valley, of course, I got involved into the niche of personal growth and transformation, first as a student, learning from all the best teachers. We had access to them. I got to know them personally. I still have this weird quirk. I prefer to learn from teachers directly and personally rather than read their books. Yeah. So I have to, every time I want to read a book, I have to find the author and get to know them. But at the age of 40, I came to a conclusion that my perfect Instagrammable life is not exactly that makes me truly happy, mostly because there were cases and situations where I would feel something which felt wrong, which felt inappropriate, which felt that I shouldn't feel like that. Very simple example is I would go to an event to speak, for example, and leave my kids behind at home and forget to call them for 4 days. Mm-hmm. And I love them dearly. And then I would feel really horrible because I would think to myself, a proper good mom wouldn't feel like this. What's wrong with me? And from there, I started undoing my life. I realized that this perfect picture is something which I showed to the world. But what is behind the facade is unclear even to me, because I've forgotten what was behind the facade. And a few years back, I actually stepped a little bit aside from running Mind Valley, from doing marketing in Mind Valley, from being in executive board, and started speaking and being an author. That's how I ended up now giving interviews, because before I was in the background more than in the limelight. Yeah. And I made a huge turn at the age of 40 and started rediscovering myself from the start, from the fresh, clean slate.
Well, and you've done well, and I know that you teach at Mind Valley. I've seen some of the programs there and some of the teachers, and I know that you're one of the teachers. So today I promised everyone we'd talk about hacking happiness. That's what I put out on the web and on our advertising to everyone. But I know you teach this program called Hacking Happiness. It's kind of a unique framework for balancing your life. Take a moment. Let's talk about that and get started in that, if you don't mind.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it was how I ended up on stage, actually. I was teaching 7 steps initially. It was 6 steps to learn how to be happy. And the premise of it is that we all have a set point of happiness, and different events in our life will throw us off this set point. But generally, we tend to get back to that same set point. So if you take a very simple example from your own life, you would have friends who have everything perfect for them, and yet they're constantly unhappy and constantly complaining about something. Or the opposite, you would have friends who it seems that life throws all the most horrible challenges at them, and still they're always very happy. And the thing is that psychologists actually say that this is our set point, and no matter what happens to our life, even if it's a huge throwing off the set point, you will come back there. If it's something happy, you will eventually go back down to that set point. If it's something really unhappy, you will still go back down, back up to that set point. So my program, or my 7 days of happiness, are focused on figuring out the ways and the practices to lift the set point. Because a lot of the times when we think about how to lift our mood, we actually focus on very simple techniques, which are, I call them instant gratification type of techniques that make us feel better right now, but they're not necessarily going to change the set point of happiness. And the point of my program is that you retrain your set points to be a little bit higher, so that whatever you do, it's not immediate gratification. Maybe you don't feel massively happy at this point, but after long period of practice, your set point goes up and you suddenly feel more satisfaction in life. And a very simple example, which I'm sure your audience knows very well, is the gratitude practice. You do practice gratitude regularly. At the moment when you practice, it is okay, but it doesn't make you, like, if you have a big problem in your life, it's not going to turn everything 180 degrees and make you feel so much more happier. But research shows that if you practice it regularly over 30 days, your perception of your own happiness goes up by 25%. So in a very in a nutshell, that's what I'm teaching.
So kind of give us a practice if you don't mind. An example.
It is 6 steps, and gratitude is one of them, which is a simple one. Another one, which I'm sure your audience knows well, is practicing being in the present. Of course, 15 minutes is not enough to go through all the 7 practices in depth, but I can name them. If I remember them by heart. So gratitude, being in the present. Eckhart Tolle is a great teacher here. Then self-love, obviously, and then in the second half of my program, I actually turn a little unexpected because I talk about pain and forgiveness. One more important practice is actually nurturing your connections, because research shows, one of the longest researchers Harvard University has started it like 75 years ago, shows that our happiness levels are very directly connected to the strength of our connections in our life. So that's another important aspect. But my favorite part of the program is actually a little unexpected, because the premise is that life is going to be both pleasant and unpleasant. And if you want to learn to be happy, you have to learn to deal with the side which we don't like to even think about, because fairy tales end and they lived happily ever after, but life isn't like that. I love to quote Susan David here. She's a psychology professor and a TED speaker, and she says that pain is the price of access to meaningful life. So if you have anything meaningful in your life, meaningful connection, love, a mission, meaningful job, something that you really put your heart and soul into it, pain is an inevitable part of life. And the funny thing is that as children, we are taught we're not taught, but our parents want to protect us from pain. And we grow up believing that happiness is absence of pain or discomfort. This is one interesting consequence. And the other interesting consequence is that we are not given the right tools to deal with pain and discomfort in the safe environment, or to learn how to deal with them in the safe environment. So a great chunk of what I'm teaching is actually surprisingly connected to how to go through painful periods of your life, how to come strong out of that, because I also don't believe a very widespread cliche that what doesn't kill you makes you strong. It's not necessarily like that. It depends on your context. It depends on the tools that are available to you, because if it was true, we wouldn't have traumatized people. We wouldn't have psychiatrists to work with, because people would become stronger and better with every lemon that's thrown at them. But the truth is that it depends on your toolkit. It depends on your context. It depends on are you capable to get out of your painful or discomfortable experience and transform and become stronger, or is it going to break you? So that's, again, very quickly.
I think you make a great point, because I think we are conditioned from childhood that when we have pain, that we're supposed to hide it. I know at least that's the way I was conditioned to be. You didn't bring out your pain, you didn't share your pain with others, and in many ways that by hiding it, that's where we don't deal with it. And if we had been taught to deal with the pain, and that's what you're talking about, at least that's what I'm hearing, correct me if I'm wrong, is you talk a lot about the fact that everyone has pain. It's part of life, and we need to learn to just deal with it the right way. And some pains are bigger than others. Some heartbreaks are bigger than others. Some tragedies are bigger than others. Those, and everyone is equipped differently. I think that's perfectly how you say that. Everyone is equipped differently to handle that. And that's why we need each other, right?
And, another interesting aspect that you said, that we don't talk about pain. And when we don't talk about something, then we don't learn about it. When some topic becomes a taboo, then obviously there is so much misunderstanding around this topic. So because we don't talk about that, where are we supposed to even learn how to deal with that? So right. Yes, that's what I like to talk about. It's one of my pet topics.
No, I like it. I think that's it's important. And if you're talking about really hacking happiness, I think that's somewhere where you need to hit probably in the beginning, wouldn't you?
Well, I usually leave this topic for the later, mostly because it's a hard topic and you need to develop some level of trust with the teacher before you go into something so sensitive. But there is one more practice which is incredibly important, and I'm sure there's so much information about that. It's forgiveness. It is related to pain, but it is the step further from pain. It's actually the proper way to deal with any kind of pain is forgive, whether it's forgive another person, forgive the circumstances, forgive yourself. So that's another very important practice in learning how to be happy.
And I think some people, I talk to my clients and as we're teaching through the Institute about forgiveness a lot and really what that is. And maybe you can give your perspective on what you think forgiveness is for our audience, if you don't mind.
Well, I love this topic as well. And again, I could talk for an hour about just forgiveness and just the theory of forgiveness and then do an exercise and whatnot, because it is a very, very important skill. In fact, I started probably learning the happiness from the skill of forgiveness. My favorite concept in forgiveness is actually the Buddhist, it's attributed to Buddhists, that holding a grudge against someone is like drinking poison, hoping that the person who has hurt you is going to suffer.
One of my favorite sayings.
Sorry?
One of my favorite sayings.
Yeah, so I guess the most important part about forgiveness to understand is it is a self-care practice. It is not about being wise or being better or being more enlightened. It is a self-care practice. If you get hurt physically and you're going to take care of the wound, you're going to clean it, you're going to dress it because it's about you. And a lot of the times, what I've noticed, and again, there are so many things to talk about forgiveness, is that people apprehensive. Or don't want to forgive because they think that they teach someone a lesson by being upset with them. But we don't realize that the only person who's suffering is the person who is upset, who's holding their negative energy. So the moment when I understood that forgiveness is a personal practice, it's only about you. It's not a two-way highway or road. And it's not even important that the other person forgives you or is at peace at you. And it actually broke the ice for me, and it started the process because it started being easier and easier to let go and to truly forgive. So that's probably the superficial idea. But as I said, I can go into this topic and talk for an hour because it's such an important topic.
Well, and I think it really is, especially in what's going on in the world today. There's so much anger and things going back and forth, and good friends getting mad at each other, and just craziness, And I like to think also, you talk about forgiveness is really about yourself, and that's true, because if you're holding a grudge against someone or if you're angry with someone, you're really only, the other person may not even know. I've talked to people in my practice that have loved ones that have passed on and they're still mad at them. So who are they serving, right?
If you don't mind, I'll share one half-baked theory of mine. I'm getting to...
Okay, I'd love to.
It's raw, but I'm getting there. The more I practice self-love and self-care and self-forgiveness, the more I realize I'm becoming more tolerant to other people's quirks. And I start seeing more and more the connection between, you get really upset with other people if you are hiring yourself to a super high bar and you're not capable of forgiving yourself. So for me, it comes back to the same relationship with myself. The moment I figure out relationship with myself, when I am capable of accepting myself and loving myself with my quirks, with my dents, with my scratches, with my flaws, then that's when it becomes so much easier to accept other people and their quirks and their scratches and their flaws. So I think if we go deep and more philosophical about forgiveness, then it comes back to being such a private personal practice that only when you're at true peace and love with yourself, fully, unconditionally, then suddenly it's so much easier to love the rest of the world.
No, I agree. It's hard to forgive someone else if you haven't learned to love and forgive yourself. And I always add compassion to that. That's a big buzzword for me is you need to have compassion for yourself the same as you would have compassion for someone else. And once you kind of put those together, then all of a sudden people you're forgiving, you actually learn compassion for as well. And that really changes your life at that point.
So. It's actually, I would look at it even more philosophically. I realize that we are upset with people usually for things that we do with them or we do to them. So very often we're upset with something which triggers something unpleasant in ourselves. You may be upset with a person behaving in a certain way, but often when that happens, when it brings up a very strong emotion in you and somebody triggers you, then it's such a good moment to ask, what does this person trigger in me? What is it in me that I don't accept, that I'm so upset with this other person? I know it's maybe too philosophical a look at that, but I truly believe that only when you're at peace with yourself, suddenly people stop triggering you and you stop needing to forgive them.
And I think you're right. But I think that takes practice. You have to kind of put that into a daily practice and start to recognize it along with everything else. So I just want to ask a quick question. It just came to mind. Do you put meditation into this process? Kind of give us how this process works for you.
Well, meditation for me is like any hygiene practice. Okay. You need to know how to soap your hands to wash them. So meditation is a really good practice that you can, combined with other things, can be so powerful. So meditation in itself, of course, it's calming and it's bringing peace to you. But if you do any exercise from, let's say, psychology textbook or from personal growth and transformation in a meditative state, it's so much deeper. So I do practice forgiveness through a meditation. I have a meditation, and almost anything I teach, I can come up with a meditation for that, because it's just that our even medically speaking, our body is in such a good state when we are meditating. Our mind is so open, and something which we probably can't explain through physical senses also is so much more attuned to whether it's God or higher power, whatever you believe. I do apply meditation with all the practices out of psychology textbooks and whatever I learn, because it's much more powerful.
Yeah, it's a big part of what we teach in our daily practice as well. People wake up every morning thinking the same thoughts, feeling the same way, and doing the same things. And part of getting out of living in the past and changing, I call it mindset. You called it something else at the beginning of the show that slipped my mind, but I think we were talking about the same thing. You called it a set point, I think. Everybody has their set point, and you have to move beyond that set point and grow. And the only way to do that is through these practices you're talking about. We're down to about 3 minutes in the show, but I want you to tell people just a little bit more about how to find you, maybe a little bit more about Mind Valley and who's there.
Well, you can always find me in Mind Valley, of course, but Mind Valley has so many teachers that you might get lost there. I think my program has one of the flashiest covers in the Mind Valley collection. Apart from that, you can find me on Instagram at Kristina Mand, and Kristina with a K, M-A-N-D at the end is my maiden family name. And I call myself Everyday Life Philosopher, so that's where I mostly talk and write, and occasionally I talk from Mind Valley stage as well, among other teachers. So,
anything big coming up that you need to tell everybody about, or new?
I am planning to do an online class based on my program Live by Our Own Rules, which is about authenticity. You asked me about happiness. I'll share a story. I had a friend who asked her date, so what does it mean to be happy? And he said, it's when you don't need to lie, even to yourself. So ultimately, I think happiness is about being able to be fully honest with yourself, and while being fully honest with yourself, actually truly loving and accepting yourself the way you are. I mean, it doesn't mean that you don't want to get better, but are you at peace with what you have right now? So my program is about that, and it is actually a program in the Mind Valley collection. But I'm planning to probably March or April. I'm planning to have a live class where I teach it live, and it has like a new set of exercises. So that's a big new thing for me.
Oh, I'm excited to see it. So everyone, you can, mindvalley.com is how you get it to Mind Valley. And she's right. There are just a lot of teachers in there, but you pop up right there at the beginning, so they'll find you. And right. On Facebook or Instagram, it's Kristina Mand. It's with a K, Kristina is, and then M-A-N-D for the last name. Anything else that you want to tell our audience before we go that you want to leave? Yeah. I think that was a great message, by the way.
I think yes, that's exactly what I want to say. That your relationship with yourself determines actually your relationship with the rest of the world, and the best thing you can do for yourself is actually to be happy, because you can't help anyone if you're not happy. That's what Dalai Lama once told me, Kristina. You can't help anyone if you're not happy. So as long as you remember that and take care of yourself, you'll be able to change the world for a better place.
I think that's a perfect way to end the show. Thank you. Everyone, it's time for a new peace movement here at Spiritual Revolution. Revelation Radio sounds good too, by the way. Spiritual Revolution Radio, we are committed to knowledge. We want to help you raise your frequency and reset your life code. Love and peace, everyone. Find me at Life by Design Institute or at spiritualrevolutionradio.com. Thanks.
This has been Spiritual Revolution Radio with Dr. Will Miller. For more information or to be a guest, please visit lifebydesign.institute. Join us next week for another edition of Spiritual Revolution Radio with your host, Dr. Will Miller.